Earth had been sending radio signals into space for over 100 years. Television shows, radio broadcasts, and internet data all leaked into the darkness beyond our planet. Most humans never thought about this. They lived their lives, went to work, raised families, and worried about everyday problems. Alan Wright was different. As a linguist working for NASA, he often wondered what would happen if someone out there heard our signals. He spent his days creating possible ways to talk with aliens, though most of his coworkers thought it was a waste of time. "You'll never need those protocols, Alan," his boss would say with a laugh. "At least not in our lifetime." On a Tuesday morning in April, Alan was proven right. The sky above every major city on Earth suddenly filled with massive ships. They appeared without warning, huge, dark vessels that blocked the sun and cast shadows over terrified people below. Panic spread quickly. The president addressed the nation, urging calm while admitting the government had no idea who these visitors were or what they wanted. The United Nations called an emergency meeting. Military forces around the world went on high alert, though everyone knew their weapons would likely be useless against beings who could cross the stars. Alan watched the ships from his apartment window in Houston. Unlike most people, he felt a strange calm. This was the moment he had prepared for his entire career. His phone rang. It was General Patricia Sanders, head of a previously secret government task force. "Dr. Wright, we need you in Washington. Now." 6 hours later, Alan sat in a Pentagon meeting room with military leaders, scientists, and government officials. They argued loudly about what to do next. "We should launch everything we have," shouted one general, pounding his fist on the table. "That would be suicide," countered a scientist. "Their technology must be thousands of years beyond ours." "Patricia." Sanders raised her hand for silence. "We've received a transmission. It appears to be a request for communication." All eyes turned to Alan. "Dr. Wright, you're our best linguist. You've studied possible alien communication patterns. What do you think?" Alan cleared his throat. "We need to respond peacefully and establish a dialogue. And we need someone with actual diplomatic experience." That's when Lisa Martinez entered the room. A Navy captain with 20 years of experience in international negotiations, Lisa had a reputation for staying calm in impossible situations. "Captain Martinez will lead the diplomatic team," said Sanders. "Dr. Wright will handle linguistics. You leave for the primary contact point in 1 hour." The aliens had landed a small craft in a field outside Washington, D.C. They called themselves the Caldari. Through Alan's quick work with translation software, humans learned that the Caldari had conquered 17 other worlds before reaching Earth. They expected immediate surrender. What they didn't expect was Lisa Martinez. "Welcome to Earth," she said, standing relaxed in front of beings twice her height. The Caldari had 6 limbs and bodies covered with crystal-like plates that shifted colors as they moved. Their 3 eyes blinked in different patterns that Alan realized were expressions of emotion. "Your planet belongs to the Caldari Empire now," said their leader, a commander named Vostale. His eye blinks showed confusion when Lisa smiled in response. "That's not how things work here," Lisa replied. "But we're happy to discuss peaceful relations. Would you like to continue this conversation somewhere more comfortable? Perhaps over a meal?" The Caldari delegation looked at each other in confusion. In their experience, conquered species either fought hopelessly or surrendered immediately. These humans were doing neither. 3 days later, Vostal and 5 other Caldari found themselves at Alan's family ranch in Nebraska. Alan had suggested it as a neutral location away from military installations and population centers. "My sister is cooking dinner tonight," Alan told the aliens as they walked across the wide open space of the ranch. "She makes the best barbecue in the state." "What is barbecue?" asked Zelkar, a Keldari scientist. You're in for a treat, Alan said with a smile. The ranch house was surrounded by security, but it didn't look like a high-level diplomatic meeting. Alan's nieces and nephews ran around playing tag. His brother-in-law tended a grill on the porch. Neighbors had stopped by, curious about the visitors, but not particularly afraid. Vostale watched children running past his guards. You know, we could destroy your cities from orbit? He asked Lisa, genuinely confused by the casual atmosphere. Lisa handed him a beer. Sure, but then you'd never get to try Karen's apple pie. It won Best in County 3 years running. The Keldari commander stared at the bottle in his hand. I do not understand your species. You should be terrified. Oh, plenty of people are scared, Lisa admitted. But most humans just want to live their lives. We found that sharing food is better than fighting, when possible. As night fell, the aliens sat awkwardly at picnic tables, sampling barbecue with specially designed utensils Alan had created for their unique hands. To everyone's surprise, the Keldari loved spicy food. Their color plates glowed bright orange when they tried hot sauce. This diplomatic approach is highly unusual, Zelkar told Alan as they watched fireflies appear over the fields. We expected resistance or surrender. Humans are full of surprises, Alan replied. Later that night, Vostale held an emergency meeting with his officers on their ship. These humans are confusing, he said. They know we could conquer them easily, yet they invited us to a social gathering. Their military leaders are present, but not displaying weapons. Children were allowed near us. This makes no strategic sense. Perhaps it is a trick, suggested his second-in-command. Or perhaps they truly believe they can avoid war through this diplomacy, said Zelkar. It is fascinating. No other species has responded this way. Vostale made his decision. We will postpone invasion plans. These humans require further study. They do not behave according to any known patterns. For the next 6 months, an uneasy peace existed between humans and Keldari. Ships remained in orbit, but no hostile actions were taken. Diplomatic meetings continued. Some Keldari even became minor celebrities, appearing on talk shows and touring Earth's landmarks. Most humans gradually returned to normal life. They adjusted to the presence of aliens with surprising speed. Jokes about the Keldari appeared on late-night television. Children dressed as them for Halloween, but government leaders remained cautious. Behind closed doors, scientists studied every bit of information they could gather about Keldari technology. Military planners created contingency plans. And Lisa Martinez kept the diplomatic channels open, building what appeared to be a friendly relationship with Vostale. Humans adapt quickly, she explained to the Keldari commander during a fishing trip in Minnesota. It's one of our best qualities. And one of your most confusing, he replied. Neither of them knew that this strange peace was about to end. In the darkness of space near Jupiter, a human cargo ship called the USS Meridian was about to make a navigation error that would change everything. Captain Frank Reeves liked the quiet of deep space. The USS Meridian was a simple cargo vessel carrying mining equipment to the new human outpost on Europa. Frank had been making this run for 3 years. It was good, honest work that let him see the wonders of the solar system while supporting his family back on Earth. Course correction needed, Captain, said Ellie Smith, his navigator. We're drifting too close to the new Keldari security zone. Frank nodded. The aliens had claimed large sections of space around Jupiter as their territory. It was part of the uneasy agreement between Earth and the Keldari. Human ships were supposed to stay clear. Make the adjustment, Ellie. Let's give them plenty of room. Ellie pressed several buttons on her console. Nothing happened. Navigation isn't responding, sir. Frank frowned. Try the backup system. That's not working either. Worry crept into her voice. Something's interfering with our guidance. Computers. Frank called the engine room. Gary, what's happening down there? Chief Engineer Gary Ross sounded confused. All systems show green, Captain, but nothing's responding correctly. It's like something is overriding our controls. The Meridian continued to drift closer to the forbidden zone. Frank sent out an emergency signal, explaining their situation to both Earth Command and the Caldari patrol ships they knew were watching. This is USS Meridian. We are experiencing navigation failure. Request. Assistance. We do not intend to violate Caldari space. On the Caldari command ship orbiting Jupiter, Commander Vostal received the message. He watched the human vessel drift into restricted space. Another human trick, said his second-in-command. They are testing our defenses. Vostal wasn't so sure. After 6 months studying humans, he had learned they were strange, but generally honest in diplomatic matters. Still, rules were rules in the Caldari Empire. Send a warning, he ordered. They have 1 Earth minute to reverse course. The warning was sent. On the Meridian, Frank and his crew worked desperately to regain control. Nothing's working, shouted Gary over the comm. It's like something is blocking our systems. The minute passed. The Meridian continued forward. They ignore our warning, said the Caldari weapons officer. Protocol is clear. Vostal hesitated, remembering Lisa Martinez and the strange barbecue. Diplomacy. But his duty as a Caldari commander came first. Fire warning shots, he ordered. Bright energy beams flashed across the Meridian's bow. Frank Reeves knew what would come next. All hands, prepare for emergency measures. He shouted into the ship-wide comm. We're being... He never finished the sentence. The next Caldari blast wasn't a warning. It cut through the Meridian's hull like paper. The ship exploded in a brief, bright flash, then was gone. All 28 crew members died instantly. Back on Earth, the news spread quickly. The Caldari had destroyed an unarmed human cargo ship. There were no survivors. In the White House Situation Room. Military leaders pushed for immediate response. We need to show strength, insisted General William Peterson. A targeted strike on one of their smaller vessels. The president looked to Lisa Martinez, who had been called in as the lead diplomatic expert on the Caldari. They expect us to either attack or surrender, Lisa said quietly. Those are the only responses they understand from their previous conquests. What do you suggest instead? Asked the president. Something they won't expect. The official response from Earth shocked the Caldari. There was no military action. No formal declaration of war. The president made a simple public statement, expressing sadness over the loss of life and requesting a joint investigation into what happened. Diplomatic channels remained open. Vostal couldn't understand it. They do nothing? After we destroyed their ship? Perhaps they fear us too much to respond, or perhaps they are responding in ways we don't recognize. Indeed, across Earth, humans were responding, just not in ways the Caldari could see or understand. In a university lab in Boston, Dr. Olivia Jackson gathered her research team. For months, they had been studying pieces of Caldari technology from cultural exchanges. The Meridian incident changes everything, she told her team. We need to understand their weapons and shield systems. No more academic papers, we need practical applications. Her students nodded grimly. That night, none of them went home. They ordered pizza and worked through until morning. In a suburban garage in Cleveland, Ben Carter watched the news about the Meridian. Ben was a plumber by trade, but he had an engineering degree he'd never used professionally. For the past 3 months, he had been tinkering with an old radio set, trying to pick up and decode Caldari transmissions as a hobby. Dad, are we going to war with the aliens? Asked his 10-year-old daughter as she handed him a wrench. "I don't think so, sweetie," he replied. "But it doesn't hurt to understand how they communicate." That night, after his kids went to bed, Ben stayed up late. He made a breakthrough in decoding a frequency pattern, the Caldari, used for short-range communications. Similar scenes played out across the country. A high school science teacher in Oregon began designing small drones that could potentially interfere with Caldari sensors. A retired Navy engineer in Florida started rebuilding old missile guidance systems. A farming community in Iowa offered their land for underground shelter construction. None of these people were ordered to do these things. There was no central command giving instructions. They were simply humans responding to a threat in their own ways. On the Caldari command ship, intelligence officer Zix brought disturbing news to Vostale. "The humans are not responding as expected," Zix reported. "Their military forces remain at normal readiness levels. No fleet movements have been detected. Their leaders continue to request diplomatic talks." "They must be planning something," Vostale insisted. "If they are, we cannot detect it," said Zix. "They appear to be ignoring us." "Impossible," replied Vostale. "No species ignores the destruction of their vessels." In Washington, Lisa Martinez met with Alan Wright at a small coffee shop away from government buildings. "The Caldari are watching for a military response," Lisa said quietly. "They don't understand why we haven't launched a counterattack." Alan nodded. "Their entire culture is built around clear hierarchy and expected responses. What they don't see is that humans don't need central coordination to prepare for threats." "Exactly," Lisa agreed. "While they're watching for fleet movements, millions of individual humans are finding their own ways to deal with the Caldari threat. Do you think it will be enough?" Alan asked. Lisa looked out the window at people going about their daily lives. "The Caldari conquered 17 worlds by following the same playbook, but they've never faced humans before. In space, the Caldari continued to watch and wait for a response that looked familiar to them. But Earth's real response was happening. In thousands of small ways, they couldn't recognize a response as diverse and unpredictable as humanity itself." 3 weeks after the Meridian incident, Kate Miller sat in her college dorm room staring at her laptop screen. As a sophomore studying computer science at MIT, she should have been working on her programming assignment. Instead, she was examining data from Caldari communication systems that had been made public after the cultural exchange program. Her roommate, Nancy, looked over her shoulder. "Still obsessing over alien code?" Kate nodded without looking up. "There's something weird about how their systems process authentication. Like they never expected anyone to try hacking them." "Well, no one's ever beaten them in 17 planets, right?" Nancy said, grabbing her jacket. "I'm going to get coffee. Want some?" "Sure," Kate mumbled, already lost in the code again. "What?" Kate had discovered was a basic security flaw in Caldari systems. They used a predictable pattern for their access codes, something that would be considered amateur work in human cybersecurity. She had started the project out of curiosity weeks ago, but after the Meridian disaster, it felt much more important. That night, Kate published her findings on an open-source platform where programmers shared code. She didn't label it as a way to hack Caldari systems. She simply called it Interesting Patterns in Non-Standard Communication Protocols and went to bed. By morning, programmers around the world were building on her work. Meanwhile, in a small town in Texas, retired Army Sergeant Greg Patel watched the news with growing concern. The official line was that diplomatic talks with the Caldari were ongoing, but Greg didn't trust it. 20 years in combat had taught him to prepare for the worst. Greg called a few friends from his old unit. They met at the local coffee shop to talk. "The government isn't going to tell us if we're headed for war," Greg told them. "We need to get the community ready ourselves." His friend Diane, who had served as a medic, nodded. I can organize first aid training. Call it pandemic preparedness if anyone asks. I can set up a communication network, offered Joe, who had been a communication specialist. Ham radios, emergency alerts, that kind of thing. Within days, their informal group had 30 members. They called themselves the Community Preparedness Club and met weekly at the coffee shop. Similar groups were forming all across America, organized by veterans, emergency responders, and ordinary citizens who simply wanted to be ready. On a military base in Colorado, Colonel Sam Edwards received unusual orders. He was to provide Dr. Olivia Jackson and her research team with access to advanced weapons development facilities, but give them complete freedom to work without oversight. These scientists aren't military, he complained to his superior. They don't follow proper protocols. That's exactly why they're here, replied General Sanders. We need people who think differently. Dr. Jackson and her team moved into the facility and immediately began breaking rules. They took apart classified technology, combined it with their understanding of Caldari systems, and worked around the clock. Military personnel watched in confusion as the scientists celebrated breakthroughs that made no sense according to conventional warfare doctrine. They've created some kind of shield disruptor, Colonel Edwards reported to his superiors. But it's the size of a toaster and has parts from a microwave oven. Does it work? Asked General Sanders. They say it does, but it doesn't follow any weapons design parameters in our manuals. Good, said the general. Because Caldari weapons don't follow our manuals either. In Cleveland, Ben Carter was making progress in his garage. His plumbing business was suffering because he spent every free moment working on his Caldari communication device. His wife worried but supported him. I think I've got it, he told her one night, showing her a mess of wires and circuit boards connected to an old computer. I can intercept their ship-to-ship communications and even transmit on their frequencies. What are you going to do with it? She asked. Ben shrugged. Not sure yet. But knowledge is power, right? On the Caldari command ship, intelligence officer, Zix was growing increasingly concerned. It has been 23 Earth days since we destroyed their vessel, he reported to Vostale. Their response remains ... unexpected. Explain, demanded the commander. Their military forces have not mobilized. Their space fleet remains in standard positions. Their media continues to discuss the incident, but their government only requests more diplomatic talks. Zix hesitated. However, we have detected unusual patterns in their behavior. What patterns? Small gatherings in many locations. Increased communication among their scientific community. Unusual resource allocations. Zix's color plates shifted to a worried blue. But none of it follows any war preparation protocol we recognize. Vostale considered this information. Could they be planning a surprise attack? If so, it is unlike any we have encountered before. There is no central coordination, no clear military buildup. Zelkar, who had joined the meeting, offered a different perspective. I believe humans don't prepare for war like other species we've encountered. They don't follow a centralized response structure. My studies suggest each human might be independently developing countermeasures. That's inefficient and impossible, Vostale said dismissively. No species can respond effectively without central command. But doubt had begun to creep into his mind. In Washington, Lisa Martinez met with the president and key advisors. The Caldari are getting nervous, she reported. They expected either surrender or a direct military response. Our approach confuses them. What approach? Asked the defense secretary. We're still figuring out how to respond to their superior technology. Lisa smiled. Exactly. While we appear to be doing nothing from their perspective, Americans across the country are finding their own solutions. Dr. Jackson's team has developed shield-disrupting technology. A college student named Kate Miller discovered a security flaw in their communication systems. Thousands of community groups are preparing local defense plans. But none of this is coordinated, protested the defense secretary. That's what the Caldari don't understand, Alan Wright added. Humans are natural problem solvers. We don't need someone to tell us how to respond to a threat. We just do it, each in our own way. The president looked thoughtful. So our best strategy is to keep them confused while all these individual efforts continue? Yes, Lisa confirmed. They're watching for a response. They understand fleets moving, armies mobilizing. They don't see the real threat, millions of humans independently, finding ways to counter them. On college campuses, students held hackathons to find weaknesses in Caldari technology. In small towns, community groups organized under the guise of emergency preparedness. In labs across the country, scientists adapted their research to focus on alien technology. None of these people were soldiers. None had been ordered to do this work. They were simply humans responding to a threat in the way humans always had, with creativity, determination, and a complete disregard for proper protocols. The Caldari had no category for this kind of response. They had conquered species with superior technology and greater numbers. But they had never faced an enemy that didn't fight according to recognizable patterns, an enemy that didn't even seem to realize they were at war. And that was humanity's greatest strength. 2 months after the Meridian incident, Commander Vostale made his decision. The humans' strange response, or lack of proper response, had gone on long enough. The Caldari Empire had a reputation to maintain. We will launch a demonstration. Strike, he announced to his war council. A limited attack on their military base in the region, called Colorado. This will force them to either fight properly or surrender. His officers agreed. The plan was simple. 3 Caldari ships would descend from orbit, destroy the military facility with precision weapons, and return to space. The attack would show humans the true power of the Caldari while minimizing civilian casualties. Surely then the humans would respond in a way that made sense. The attack was scheduled for dawn, local Earth time, the night before the planned attack. Kate Miller was hosting an online meeting with programmers from around the world. What had started as her simple discovery about Caldari security flaws had grown into a global collaboration. Thousands of coders had joined the effort, building tools to interfere with alien systems. The navigation hack is ready, reported a programmer from India. We can make their ships think they're somewhere they're not. The shield frequency tool works in simulation, added another from Brazil. But we haven't tested it against actual Caldari technology. Kate nodded, taking notes on her laptop. We need to compile everything into packages that can be deployed quickly by anyone, not just tech experts. None of these people were military. None had security clearances. They were just concerned citizens with computer skills, working together. Online. At the military base in Colorado, Dr. Jackson's team was loading their homemade devices onto trucks. Colonel Edwards watched with a mixture of confusion and admiration. "You're sure these will work?" he asked Dr. Jackson. "In theory," she replied with a shrug. "We've never had the chance to test them against actual Caldari weapons." "That's not very reassuring, Doctor," Olivia smiled. "Welcome to science, Colonel. Sometimes you don't know if something works until you try it." As the sun set, Greg Patel's Community Preparedness Club gathered at the local high school. What had started as a small group of veterans had grown to include hundreds of local citizens. They had organized into teams: medical, communications, transportation, and security. "We've received word that there might be alien activity tomorrow," Greg told them. "This isn't a drill." No one panicked. They simply checked their equipment and reviewed their assignments. These weren't soldiers. but ordinary people teachers, plumbers, office workers who had decided to be ready. In Cleveland, Ben Carter made final adjustments to his communication device. Over the past weeks, he had been listening to Caldari transmissions, learning their patterns and protocols. Now he believed he could do more than just listen. "Bedtime, Dad," said his daughter, appearing in the garage doorway in her pajamas. "Just a few more minutes, sweetie," he replied. "This is important. Is it to stop the aliens?" Ben looked up, surprised. "What makes you say that?" "Everyone at school knows something's happening," she said matter-of-factly. "Billy's dad is in Mr. Patel's club. They're getting ready." Ben nodded slowly. "Yes, it's to help with the aliens. But don't worry, we'll be fine." After tucking his daughter into bed, Ben returned to his garage and made one final adjustment. Then he tested his device, sending a simple signal on Caldari frequencies. It worked perfectly. At dawn, 3 Caldari ships descended toward the Colorado military base. Inside the lead vessel, the attack commander reviewed the mission once more. Target locked. Weapons ready. Begin approach. Suddenly, the ship's navigation system flickered. The commander frowned. "What's happening?" "Navigation is showing conflicting coordinates," reported the pilot, confusion evident in his voice. "The system thinks we're over water, not land." In the second ship, similar problems were occurring. "Weapons targeting is offline," reported a frustrated officer. "Systems are not responding correctly." The third ship managed to continue its approach, but as it neared the base, the pilot saw something unexpected. Rather than fleeing in panic, vehicles were moving in organized patterns. On the ground below, small devices were being positioned around the perimeter of the base. "Enemy defensive measures detected," the pilot reported. "Unknown technology." Inside the base, Colonel Edwards watched as Dr. Jackson's team activated their homemade devices. The machines hummed to life, emitting signals specifically designed to interfere with Caldari technology. "They're working," shouted one of the scientists, pointing at her laptop screen. "Their shields are fluctuating." The Caldari ships struggled to maintain their attack formation. Their normally flawless coordination was falling apart as each vessel experienced different system failures. "Abort mission," ordered the attack commander. "Return to orbit and reset systems." As the ships turned to retreat, something even more unexpected happened. The Caldari communication system on all 3 vessels suddenly broadcast the same message. "This is Ben from Ohio, so I figured out how your comm system works. Cool design, but you really should encrypt your subspace channels better. Anyway, we'd appreciate if you'd stop shooting at us. My kids have a soccer game this weekend, and this whole invasion thing is messing with the schedule." In his garage in Cleveland, Ben Carter grinned as he spoke into his homemade device. He had no idea if his message would work or even be understood, but it felt good to do something, to contribute in his own way to Earth's defense. The Caldari ships returned to orbit in disarray. What should have been a simple demonstration strike had turned into an embarrassing failure. None of their systems had performed as expected. On the command ship, Lostale received the reports with growing alarm. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "These humans have no space fleet, no unified defense system. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. Yet they defeated our attack," Six pointed out. "Their countermeasures were unlike anything we've encountered. Different ships experienced different problems, as if we were facing multiple enemies with different strategies." Zelkar, who had warned about underestimating humans, spoke carefully. "That is exactly what happened, Commander. We weren't facing a single enemy with a unified defense. We were facing thousands of individual humans, each contributing their own solution to the problem." Vostal stared at the image of Earth on the main screen. He had conquered 17 worlds for the Caldari Empire. None had presented this kind of challenge. And the message? He asked. This Ben from Ohio, who spoke on our secure channels? Just another human, said Zelkar. Not a military leader or government official. Just a person who decided to help defend his planet. For the first time in his career, Vostale felt something close to fear. The Keldari had always won through superior technology and discipline. But how could they fight an enemy that didn't? Fight according to any rules they understood? Back on Earth, people celebrated the failed alien attack. News spread quickly about the various ways humans had contributed, from Kate's coding group to Dr. Jackson's devices to Ben's unexpected message that no one had planned this coordinated defense. No central command had orchestrated it. It had simply emerged from millions of humans doing what humans do best, solving problems in creative, unexpected ways. And the Keldari had no defense against that. 1 year after the failed attack on the Colorado military base, Earth had changed. The Keldari ships remained in orbit, but they kept their distance. No further attacks had been attempted. Instead, an uneasy peace existed while both sides watched each other carefully. Then something unexpected happened. A new fleet of ships appeared near the edge of the solar system. These vessels were unlike the Keldari craft. They were sleek, with flowing lines that seemed almost alive, glowing with soft blue light. On Earth, defense systems went on high alert. Had the Keldari called for reinforcements? Was this a new threat? But the Keldari seemed just as surprised. Their ships moved into defensive positions. Clearly wary of the newcomers, the new fleet sent a message to both Earth and the Keldari. They identified themselves as the Galactic Concord, a coalition of peaceful spacefaring species. They requested a diplomatic meeting with representatives from both sides in the White House Situation Room. Officials debated how to respond. It could be a trap, warned General Peterson, working with the Keldari to lure us into a false sense of security. Or it could be genuine, countered Lisa Martinez. Either way, we should meet them. Knowledge is power. The president agreed. A diplomatic team would go, led by UN Secretary Sharon Williams, with Lisa Martinez and Alan Wright, providing their expertise on alien interaction. The meeting was set for neutral space, a massive Concorde vessel positioned halfway between Earth and the Keldari fleet. When the human delegation arrived, they found themselves in a circular room with walls that seemed to be made of flowing water. Seated at a crescent-shaped table were the Keldari representatives, including Vostile and Zelkar. Across from them sat the most unusual being any human had ever seen. It appeared to be made of crystalline structures that shifted and changed, glowing with inner light. This was Jay Tao, ambassador of the ancient Cerealian species and senior representative of the Galactic Concord. "Welcome," said Jaytal in perfect English. "We have been observing the situation in this system with great interest." Sharon Williams stepped forward. "We appreciate your interest, but we're curious about your timing. The Keldari have been here for over a year." Jadal's crystal form shimmered. "Yes, but recent events have drawn our attention. You see, something unprecedented has occurred. The Keldari Empire has failed to conquer a world." All eyes turned to Vostale, who seemed uncomfortable. "Your species has accomplished something remarkable," continued Jital, addressing the humans. "The Keldari have conquered every opponent they've faced for 2,000 years. Their tactics have always succeeded, until now." "We didn't really defeat them," Sharon replied, sipping from a water glass provided by the Concord. "We just kind of worked around them." "Precisely," said Jital. "And that is what makes humans unique in our galaxy." The ambassador explained that every other spacefaring species had evolved with rigid hierarchies and centralized decision-making. Even the peaceful members of the Concord operated with clear chains of command. Warfare throughout the galaxy followed established patterns. Armies meeting armies, fleets engaging fleets, all directed by central authorities. But humans, Jital said, with what seemed like wonder in his voice, humans are different. You respond to threats as individuals, each finding your own solution without waiting for orders. Vostale spoke for the first time. It makes no sense. It should be inefficient, chaotic. Yet somehow it works against our most advanced tactics. Jital nodded. The Keldari Empire has expanded for centuries using the same approach. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, conquer those who resist. Every species they've encountered has either fought according to recognizable military doctrine or surrendered immediately. Until they met humans. Alan Wright leaned forward, fascinated. Are you saying no other species in the galaxy has our kind of decentralized problem solving? None that we have encountered, confirmed Jital. Most intelligent species evolved from pack hunters or herd animals with clear dominant structures. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, operating in small, flexible groups where individual initiative was valued. Lisa Martinez considered this. So when the Keldari destroyed the Meridian and waited for a conventional response, they could not comprehend your actual response, Jital finished. Millions of humans independently assessing the threat and developing countermeasures without central coordination. It appeared to them as if you were doing nothing, when in fact you were doing something no other species would consider. The meeting continued for hours as the Concord explained their proposal. The Galactic Concord had maintained peace among hundreds of worlds for millennia. They invited both Earth and the Keldari Empire to join under certain conditions. The Keldari must end their conquest policy, Jital stated firmly, and humans must share their unique approach to problem solving with the rest of the galaxy. 6 months later, Ben Carter stood nervously in a grand hall on the Concord's main diplomatic vessel. He wore his best suit, the one he usually saved for weddings, and tried not to fidget as important people from a dozen worlds moved around him. I still don't understand why I'm here, he said to Alan Wright, who stood beside him. I'm just a plumber from Ohio. Alan smiled. You're here because you represent what makes humans special, Ben. You saw a problem and solved it your own way, without orders or special training. Across the galaxy, changes were happening. The Keldari had withdrawn their conquest fleets and begun the long process of making peace with worlds they had dominated. Several former Keldari commanders, including Vostale, had requested human advisors to teach them this strange new approach to problem solving. Earth, too, was changing. The knowledge shared by the Concord had accelerated human technology by centuries. Cleaner energy, advanced medicine, and faster transportation were improving lives across the planet. Earth had also become a popular destination for alien tourists and scholars, all curious about these strange humans who won wars without really fighting them. Kate Miller had graduated early and now led a team developing new communication systems that combined human creativity with alien technology. Dr. Jackson's research lab had expanded into a global institute focused on adaptive problem solving. Greg Patel's community preparedness model had been adopted by the United Nations as a template for resilience planning worldwide. As for Ben, he had been offered prestigious positions with the new Earth Defense Force and the Galactic Concord. He had declined them all. I appreciate the offers, he told Sharon Williams at the diplomatic reception, but I've got plumbing jobs scheduled for the next month, and my kids' soccer team made the playoffs. Sharon laughed. That's exactly why the Concord values humans. Ben, you just keep living your lives and solving problems as they come, without making a big deal about it. Later that evening, Jital gave a speech to the assembled representatives from across the galaxy. The ancient alien's crystalline form glowed brightly as he spoke. For millennia, We believed that advanced civilization required strict hierarchy and central control. The humans have shown us another way. They win conflicts without even trying to fight, because they don't approach problems as wars to be won, but as puzzles to be solved. Each human is a potential army unto themselves, creative, adaptive, and wonderfully unpredictable. J-Tal raised what appeared to be a glass in a toast. To humans, who teach us that true strength comes not from control, but from the freedom to find your own path. Across the galaxy, species that had lived in fear of conquest for generations began to learn this new human approach. And on Earth, most humans went about their daily lives, unaware of just how extraordinary the rest of the galaxy found them, because to humans, it wasn't extraordinary at all. It was just what they had always done: face each problem as it came, find a solution that worked, and then get back to the important things in life, like children's soccer games and family dinners. That was how humans won wars without even trying. Not by fighting better, but by not really fighting at all.